Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Planted for Purpose podcast. Welcome to another week. My name is Vikayo, and I am the host for this podcast. For those of you that are new with us, this podcast is just talking about life and just everything to do with life and culture, and also just trying to figure out how our relationship and faith can be intertwined with all of that and just figuring things out from a Christian perspective. And so last week we spoke about identity, discovering oneself and understanding who we are. And this time I do want to talk about something different, which is actually quite strays a bit more from the concept of identity, where the concept of identity is mostly about ourselves, who we are. This time around, I want to focus on community. So let's dive straight into it. I definitely think that our world champions me over we. So independence, self-sufficiency, and personal fulfillment is celebrated and even more like it's even worshipped nowadays. And not to say these things are bad, but as a result, we have lost something sacred, I believe, especially because I think we're designed for it. Community is what we're designed for. And as a result of this rise of individualism, we've definitely lost a sense of community, especially within our generation and within the Western culture as well. There's this emphasis of the individual. So we're told to follow our heart, do what you want to do. You don't owe anyone anything. And especially with the rise of social media as well, in which social media is this haven for us to create our own identity, whether it's authentic or not. And there's an increased focus on maintaining this online presence rather than to create genuine connections with other people. And it's so contradictory because social media is supposed to be able to connect different people from all around the world, from different cultures and communities, and to make one big community. However, it's done the opposite, in which no one is genuinely showing their true selves. And there's an increased focus on what we look like, how other people think of us, rather than to build a connection with other people and create one community. And that's why I wanted to create my own podcast. I wanted this to be a genuine community that I've created, not a fake one, not an inauthentic one, but a real one. And that's why I'm going to be as genuine about myself and as open and vulnerable as I can be. And what I'm saying right now, it's not for me to say that individualism is bad, especially if you've watched my last podcast episode and I speak about identity and how God has created us for a specific purpose, and we're all uniquely designed and we're all different, and that's okay. And our own personal relationship with God is unique and is precious to Him. However, it has become a problem when individualism eclipses over interdependence. And Ecclesiastes 4 verse 9 to 10 explains this beautifully. And I'm just going to read that for you guys. Let me just get it up. So it says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. So when we elevate the individual above the collective, we run the risk of walking alone, and that's not how we're supposed to live. That's not what we're designed for. God has designed us for community, and it's literally written all over, like, throughout the Bible. And do you know what's so funny to me about this rise in the I don't owe anybody anything mentality is the fact that the expectations that we have for other people within our relationships, friendships, family has not reduced as a result. What do I mean by this? I mean that we still expect other people to go above and beyond for us without having to put in the same amount of efforts and loyalties in ourselves. And this is something I think I'm definitely guilty of, and it's something that I've recognized and I immediately apologize for. I still have this expectation, oh, you're supposed to reach out to me, you're supposed to do this for me. But then I had to look back at myself and have I reached out to this person? Am I looking out for this person? But I get offended when they don't do the same for me. And it's just something you have to catch on. And I feel like it's something a lot of us also do as well. We expect people to be there for us always, but we are reluctant to always do the same for them. The same with grace. We expect people to extend grace for us, extend grace for our own personal circumstances and any issue that we're having. We expect people to extend grace when we're unable to show up for them. But when it comes to extending grace to other people, that has reduced. No one wants to extend grace to other people anymore. It's just the hard truth of it. We've increasingly become selfish. And this has led to a society that has now, we're quick to cut off friendships, we're quick to cut off relationships, and we no longer feel this need to fight for it, to communicate, to mend it. And we think the ultimate result, the best thing for us to do is to cut it off rather than fight for it. And as a result, we have lost the meaning of true community. We're now a society where we don't hold our words and our values and our commitments to each other in a high regards. I think that social media has definitely played a part in this loss of community, in the sense of social media has created this idolized version of what community should look like. We believe that community is this group of people that we can rely on, these group of people that are at our beck and call, with a completely perfect community, and that we don't have to sacrifice anything to be within that community. However, the true image of community is serving each other for a greater purpose. You wash my feet, I wash yours. Like Ecclesiastes 4 verse 9 to 10, helping each other when we fall. We as a generation has decided that no relationship is worth a bit of discomfort, and we have willingly exchanged our community for a tiny speck of comfort. The promises that God gave to Abraham and David, he said nations, not a person, not people. And even Jesus himself, Jesus gathered disciples. He didn't gather followers, he gathered disciples. He gathered people that were to spread the word with him, to join him on this journey. Even going back to the description of the early church, they met together, they broke bread together, they prayed together. That was real sense of community. It shows us what the church is actually supposed to look like, and that is community. So let's look at Acts 2 verse 44 to 47. So it says, all the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. So this is love. This is what a sacrificial community actually looks like. And that's again the word sacrifice. They were able to give up their own possessions, their own properties, just to help those within their community. That is something that cannot be said of our generation today or of our community today. No one is willing to even give up comfort. That's what I'm saying. No one is willing to even give up comfort. Compared to talk less of giving up properties and giving up lands just for the betterment of those in your community who actually need it. That's why we now live in a society that is isolated, that is lonely. There's a loneliness epidemic going on, something that I've definitely felt myself as well. Because we no longer have people that are willing to sacrifice for us. We no longer have people that are willing to put each other above their own comfort. I'm told that our own comfort is more valuable than our own community. And I don't blame our generation for thinking that this is what we're taught, this is what we see. We see that there's no benefits of having community. And the reason why we feel that way, and I know there are people that are going to come and say, I've done this before, I've gone above and beyond for other people, but I've received nothing back. And that's where the problem lies, is because it's not just supposed to be one person serving. We're each supposed to be serving each other. We're each supposed to help each other when we fall. We're each supposed to look out for one another. But when one person fails to do that, the whole community will collapse. And that's the problem with it. And that's what we're seeing, where people are being failed by other people. And there's this collapse of community, and no one thinks it's worth serving each other anymore. This is what community is love, is a sacrificial community. It's knowing your neighbors well enough to see their needs and caring enough to meet their needs. That's what we need to strive towards, to being able to meet the needs of others rather than focusing on our own personal needs. I'm not saying that we need to neglect ourselves, but that's what the benefit of being within a community would look like. when you feel like you're lacking something, somebody else within your community will see that and they'll care enough to meet your needs. So while you're meeting the needs of the next person, someone else is meeting your needs here. And at the end of the day, we're holding each other up. That's what it's supposed to look like. So we need to let go of this mentality of, if I'm within a community, I lose more of myself, but that's not the case. A community means sharing our resources and holding each other up when we can't hold ourselves up anymore. Because when a community breaks down, that's when our emotional and spiritual foundations also break down. In Genesis 2 verses 18, it says, it's not good for man to be alone. This was about Adam and Eve, of course, but the principle is still applies to us. It runs deeper. It means that we were designed for relationship. The fact that God, creator of the earth, saw Adam and saw him alone and said that, no, you can't be alone. You need a community. You need someone. That says a lot for us. That shows us that we were also created within that same design. We cannot be alone. We're not meant to be alone. We're supposed to strive with others. We're supposed to hit goals with one another. We're supposed to keep on moving with one another. And this is towards all my Christians as well, especially because I'm seeing a rise of Christians saying that I don't necessarily need to go to a church. I don't necessarily need a community. I just have God. I have my Bible. I pray. Like, I don't need anyone else. I don't need to associate with. And it's become so common where people are saying they don't need to associate with other Christians. They don't need to be within that community because they've been scarred by the community, which is understandable. And like I said before, I wouldn't say or advise anyone to stay within a toxic situation, but it's very important to be reflective as to whether that community was fully toxic and they were genuinely harming you, or whether it's the fact that this mentality of not being able to handle slight discomfort or slight conflict with other people has caused us to give up quickly on communities rather than to fight for it and build upon it and create and strengthen the foundations we have with other people and the relationships we have with other people. So how do we come back from this extreme individualism that we are now currently within? I definitely think first step is recognizing the value of community. That is something that I've started to recognize again. I have always been a person just like, I don't really need anyone else. I can just be by myself. I don't need, I've just always been like that type of person where like I'm very content with being by myself, being in my room all day and just chilling, going on the computer, whatever I do. However, God has now put within me this need to belong within a family, this need to have that community. God has definitely put this sense of this need to be within a community within me, and he's obviously done that for a purpose. He's showing me to not be prideful. He's showing me that I definitely need to rely on other people. I definitely need to, especially as my faith is growing, this is the time where I need other people, and this is the time where I need community. So the first step is to remember the value of community. We no longer recognize the importance of it. Is the reason why we are very easy to cut it off or to let go and to not fight for it anymore. So the first step is definitely recognizing that value, recognizing, hey, even though I am an individual and God has created me perfectly as I am as an individual, I definitely need a community that, well, number one, I can add to, but number two, can add to me as well. We need to also heal from our past and our traumas. That's the second step, I believe, guys, is healing from our past traumas and community. We need to learn to, number one, forgive those past traumas, forgive those people. Not to say that you need to go back there. Forgiveness doesn't necessarily always mean going back to that situation, but is healing from it, knowing that because I experienced this before, it doesn't mean that the next community I enter is going to be the same or will feel the same or will look the same. And thirdly, we need to practice community. We need to make sure it's part of our daily routine, looking out for one another. We need to practice community. We need to be consistent with it, joining a small group, whether it's a Bible study or meeting people online, or even this podcast, guys. Create our own little community through this podcast, just in any way, just creating this community and just practicing it and relearning how to show up for others at the expense of our own comfort at times as well. And fourthly, I think we just need to trust that God is moving through communities. In Matthew 18 verse 20 says, For where two or three gathers in my name, there am I with them. So Jesus, he promises his presence within a community. He promises presence within that small group of yours, and we have to trust that he is there within any community. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you're able to get something from today's podcast episode. And I hope you take the time to genuinely reflect about your community, reflect about those who you have around you, and also reflect on your own behavior, reflect on your own efforts. Think about how you sacrifice within your community and how they sacrifice for you, and appreciate it. And I just hope you all got something from today's message or today's podcast episode. And I hope to see you again next time. Bye.